Welcome to today's edition of the Statler Financial Radio Show. Your financial security is our business. Have a question for the team? Call today, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, along with Philip Statler, the president and founder of Statler Financial Services. We've got a great show for you lined up today. Philip, welcome. We're talking today about your financial habits to break right now. So any time is really a good time to break a bad habit, but whether you want to make improvements in your routine at home, your job performance at work, or with your physical health, or let's say financial health, the time to make a positive change for your future is right now. And Philip, I want to share this stat with you that says about only 33% of Americans have a written financial plan. That means most of us are just winging it when it comes to spending. So Philip, how could we break this bad habit of living without a budget?
Well, Danielle, you're right. I mean, we know that a lot of folks out there do not have any kind of written plan, whether it's a financial plan, a retirement plan, a budget even. They just don't have those things in place. I think when we look at it, you're talking specifically about budgeting. Budgeting is tough. I mean, people, because what it's doing is it's saying, I'm going to live within this constraint. And so when we do that to ourselves, then we are saying we can't do more than this. We can't spend more than this on this or this on that. And so I think that just in itself makes us want to not do it. And then the second thing that really hurts a lot of times is if people, spend more than what they have coming in, they don't like to see that number at the end, right? They don't want to see, oh man, I'm going to be in the red this month, or I'm going to be in the red this quarter. And I think that's problematic in the way they do it. And so I would encourage folks to do it this way. Set up ranges. Right? Let's have a range. My utilities are going to be, 10 to 12%, or this is going to fit within this range. That way, we've got a high and a low number that we're kind of looking at there when we look at that. But the first step is just to start, right? Just to start. And now there's so many apps out there, Danielle, that can help you with the process.
That's right.
They can get the information for you from your credit card. They can get the information from your bank account. You can sweep it all in there, and you have very little to do other than categorize stuff. I mean, back in the day when I was trying to do budgets and stuff, you had to handwrite everything, put it in an Excel spreadsheet, and it took a lot of work. Today, there's easy ways to do it today. So there's things that people can do that will make the process a lot easier.
Philip, you're so right. There's so many resources and tools surrounded by us, and there's so many opportunities. Like you mentioned, doing that Excel sheet, I'm sure took so much time. And then now we have access, easy access. You can just log in your numbers into your phone. But I love this topic, Philip, because they always say it takes about 90 days to break a habit, right? And so a complacency is another bad habit that many of us have. We don't make regular adjustments to our portfolio. We don't pay attention to the fees that we're paying. And we just really keep our money with some financial institutions just because we don't want to take the time to explore other options. And so this is why you're here. And I want to ask you, Philip, how does working with someone like you keep us from becoming too complacent with our retirement savings?
Well, I think at least specifically for us, we are very proactive in meeting with our clients. We want to make sure that at a minimum, we sit down once a year and review everything they've got going on. We'll look at their 401k, we'll look at their investments we handle, we'll look at other investments they may have that have to be at a certain place. And so we want to look at the whole picture, because the way we look at things, we are really your quarterback. And if we don't know all the different pieces that are out there, then we can't give you the best advice out there on any pieces if we don't know everything. And so that becomes the challenge is to get that balance sheet put together, and then tweaking things. We are always out there looking at investments, what's out there, what's available for our clients based on their current circumstances and what they're trying to accomplish. Where do they need to be? What portfolio do they need to be in? And it's not unusual for us to get partway through a year and something changes, right? Their outlook changes or their perspective changes. And so we have to change the whole portfolio into a different portfolio to match up more with their risk tolerance and those type of things and just how they're feeling from a market outlook perspective. And so we are going to do that at a minimum once a year. And sometimes twice a year, depending upon what's happening in the whole political realm.
Philip, I love how you and your team are very familiar with this process. And so I'm sure you know that there are certain things that we tend to overlook. There's certain impacts that happens to our retirement plan that we sometimes don't see. And so when we're talking about impact, talk about how much of an impact could fees have on our retirement?
Well, fees really do matter, right? They do come into play when we're talking about performance. Historically, I know that Vanguard, they keep track of numbers all the time. And they say, look, between 1926 and 2019, if you had an 80% stock and a 20% bond portfolio, then you would expect a return of about 9.7%, an average return. There was years it was down 40, and there was years it was up extremely high. So that's the average over that time period. Not quite 100 years yet. And so what does that really mean to your money? Well, it means if you had, and hang with me here, folks, if you had started investing $1,000 a month, now that's a lot 40 years ago, right? It's a lot today. But if you started investing $1,000 a month 40 years ago, your portfolio would grow to about $5.8 million. And that's a lot. But hang on now, if you look about fees, if you forget about the fees altogether, then that you're focusing on a 1% fee, then that rate of return drops to 8.7%. And now instead of that 5.8 million, you have 4.3 million. So that tiny 1% fee costs you $1.5 million. And so that's 25% of the wealth on that. Now, let's face it, not everybody's going to put $1,000 a month in over that time period. But it goes to the fact that that's what fees can do. So you want to make sure that you're getting value for whatever fees you're paying. And that's the key, right? So listen, folks, that's why I developed the core retirement design, because we break that down for you. We break down the risk in a portfolio. We break down the fees within the portfolio. We look at the tax aspects of portfolios and what that could mean to you long term. Then lastly, we put together that written retirement income plan for you. That's the crux of going forward, right? That's the roadmap for your retirement that you always dreamed of. To get started, give us a call today, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Give us a call today.
There's no cost or obligation to talk with Philip and his team, so do not hesitate to call that number at 863-877-1188. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Philip, as we're talking about breaking bad habits, leaving tax breaks on the table, that's another bad habit to break. So how can having a tax-efficient retirement strategy help keep you on track to keep more money for your own use on retirement?
Well, Danielle, I think that's where having a financial professional that is knowledgeable in the area of taxation and understands the impact it can have on your taxes is just so important. It truly makes a difference, especially right now. We have this kind of 2-year window this year and next year before taxes automatically go up. And so we've got this window to take advantage of. And I have clients that are calling me, hey, look, how much can I do? How much kind of Roth conversion can I do this year? And how much can I do next year to get money moved from taxable to tax-free? And that's just part of our whole practice is looking at that because that's one of our core philosophies, is that we want to pay the least amount of taxes possible throughout our retirement lifetime. And let's face it, retirement could be 20, 30, for some people, 35 years. So that's a long time, Danielle.
That's right, Philip. And I know many of us really don't want to be complacent, like especially when it comes to taxes either. Many of us does not want to be complacent. So, and a lot of people, we don't really realize that there's a short window of opportunity to implement these strategies when it comes to saving on taxes. And so, Philip, what can we do to help keep taxes from taking too much of a bite out of our retirement savings?
Well, I think it's a matter of planning. Right. It's having that plan. I mean, we become complacent because we don't have a plan in place and we don't review that plan on a regular basis to make sure that we're tracking and following the plan that we need to be, because a plan requires tweaking. It's not a set it and forget it. If you don't sit down with an advisor, at least once a year and look at that plan to make sure you're on track and changing the things you need to be changing, then before you know it, I mean, I know you've heard the story, right? If you had an airplane that was going from LA to New York and it's off by just 1/10 of a degree, it's not going to get anywhere close to New York. And it's the same with your financial plan and your retirement plan. If you're off by just a little bit a couple years in, then that can be problematic when you get ready to retire. And so we want to make sure that you are on track by making sure we have that written retirement game plan.
Philip, when we talk about habits, a lot of us can fall into the habit of lifestyle creep. Now, this is where we let our expenses and lifestyle expand as we earn more money over time. Lifestyle creep is the habit. And so how can we rein our expenses back in to make sure that we don't fall into the cracks?
I think one way to do that is to, number one, and I try to do this at the beginning of every year, look back at the year and say, okay, what subscriptions do I have? What expenses have I incurred this last year that happened automatically, that just hit my bank account or hit my credit card? And I try to go through and say, okay, am I using those? Is that of benefit to me? Is it something I still need to have? If not, we're going to cancel. And then if we decide we need them later, we'll add them back. But that can be a huge deal when we're talking about lifestyle creep, because those subscriptions, Danielle, they add up in a hurry.
That's right.
And they get you real quick. So that's an area that I think is easy if we just spend a little time and focus on it.
That's right, Philip. What is the best way that we can contact you?
Danielle, the best way is to give us a call at 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis. It's simple, folks. It's a half-hour call with you and I together to determine if you are on the right path to the retirement you always dreamed of. It's a half hour, easy to do. We'll make sure that you're doing the things you need to be doing. And if not, we'll let you know and see how we may be able to help you fill in those gaps. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
If you have any questions about retirement, don't hesitate to call Philip and the team at Statler Financial Services. They're here to guide you through a successful retirement. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Again, 863-877-1188. The Statler Financial Radio Show continues right after this.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Who likes uncertainty? Wall Street certainly doesn't. With fears of a potential recession and partisan politics, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. What will your future look like? Will your taxes go up? Will your savings go down? Here in the Sebring area, financial advisor Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services have seen uncertainty come and go. Philip can help you create a plan designed to preserve your finances in uncertain times. And it's not a matter of if those uncertain times will show up, but when. Call 863-877-1188 now to meet with Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services. Call 863-877-1188 and schedule your visit today. 863-877-1188. Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, along with Philip Statler. He's the president and founder of Statler Financial Services. Now we're talking about what it looks like creating a 5-star retirement plan. Well, picture a 5-star luxury resort. You have lush greenery, you have scenic views, and top-notch customer service. Now picture a run-of-the-mill roadside motel. Are you going into that? It's a roadside motel, probably is not going to be able to achieve that 5-star rating because I'm sure you know something is missing. Well, look at it like this. If you could rate your retirement plan, how many stars would you give it? So, Philip, let's take this a step further. We're trying to see how ready we are for retirement. And I love this analogy of how can we make sure that our plans have a 5-star rating? What does that look like?
Well, I think that when we look at that, we have to look at 5 main points that I believe that you need to have to achieve that 5-star rating, right? We need to have a reliable income plan that is consistent and conservative. We need to have a wealth management strategy. We need to have a tax efficiency strategy. We want to be tax efficient in retirement. We need to have a plan to address healthcare. And then lastly, an estate planning strategy. What does that look like for you? And I know, I call them stars, but in reality, they're just 5 key components of having a great comprehensive retirement plan, Danielle.
And I love that you listed all of them out for us, Philip. And what I would love for us to do is you make this sound easy every time. So what is the first step when we're talking about building this overall 5-star, but like you mentioned, it's components to an overall comprehensive retirement plan. What is the first step for building a reliable income plan?
Well, I guess you would start with how much income are you going to need, right? In retirement, what does that look like? And I think that there's some misconceptions here because a lot of folks have come to believe that, well, I only need half my income, or I only need, 70% of my income because I'm not going to pay as much in taxes and blah, 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 right? I mean, that's the thinking a lot of people have. And what we are actually finding is that, we really need to come somewhere greater than that number, somewhere probably between 70 and 100% of your current income. And that's really if you're debt free. If you're not debt free, then we definitely need to probably 100%, right? So that's kind of the first thing is how much do we need? And that comes down to what are we going to spend? So we have to kind of put together that budgetary item and determine what our spending is going to look like in retirement. And then from there, we can build the income. Where's it going to come from? How are we going to get it? Where's it going to rest? I use a bucket system where we bucket out money. We got this bucket for a certain period of time, and we've got 4 or 5, maybe 6 buckets of money that we're using to create that income over your lifetime. And so it's just having that process in place to be able to work through it.
Philip, you brought up a good point of making sure we have enough money to last us as long as we live. So what are some of the tools for generating some income in retirement?
Well, I think when we look at tools, there are obviously bank accounts. I mean, we've got Social Security, whether you call that a tool or not. I think it is to the standpoint of when do you take it? You can minimize it or maximize it, right? And that becomes part of the process and the tool part of Social Security. There are things like annuities that were created specifically to help generate income. Now, when we talk about annuities, there's, obviously you draw a little T account, Ben Franklin, and there's positive and negatives, right? So you have to weigh those out to make sure it's going to work the way you want it to, and it's going to add value to your income planning process. A lot of people, they have their portfolios, they have dividend stocks. Some people are just using CDs right now because interest rates are so high. So there's all kinds of tools out there. Some people have rental property, right, that are paid for, and that's generating a lot of income for them. So there's a lot of tools out there. You just got to know how to put those tools to work in your current circumstances. And again, that comes back to the process of why I developed the Core Retirement Design. The Core Retirement Design looks at 3 key components. It looks at risk in your portfolio, and it measures that. It looks at taxes, not just today, but taxes down the road and what that's going to look like to you in your retirement. And lastly, an income plan. Having that income plan in place so that you are confident in the retirement income that you're going to get month in and month out. The core retirement design. Folks, give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis. Again, that number is 863-877-1188.
You know, Philip and his team have been doing this for many years, so they have experience in the questions that you have. They have answers to them, so there's no cost or obligation. All you have to do is give him and his team a call at 863-877-1188. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Philip, can you talk about what is the difference between an income plan and a wealth management strategy?
Well, an income plan, Danielle, is setting up streams of income. A wealth management strategy is where do we put those, right? How do we get them? What is a strategy? And I look at more as a risk strategy because when we head into retirement, we cannot afford another bear market like we saw in 2000 and 2008 to wipe out everything that we've worked hard for. And so, we saw a lot of people that their 401ks were cut in half during those bear markets. And if you are getting close to retirement, that's something you cannot afford. And so we look at first diversification. We look at two types of diversification. The first type is safety versus risk. And folks, you need both buckets. You need both key components. The question is, how much do you put in each one of them? And that's part of the wealth management strategy, is determining how much goes to safety, how much goes to risk. Then the risk bucket, you've got to diversify even further. But that's really the wealth management strategy, is where do we put the assets to create the income that we're going to need in retirement?
Philip, you mentioned that word assets, and so it kind of leads me to this question of, should retirees still have a portion of their retirement assets invested in the market?
I believe they do. Now, how much is up for debate, right? So I believe that we start with what I call the rule of 100. And the rule of 100 says, I'm going to take your age from 100. So 100 minus your age gives us a net number. If you are 65 years old, try that as 35%. So 35% is what we would be a starting point, not an ending point, but a starting point of what you might want to have invested in the market. Now, we narrow that down more by doing a risk analysis on you to determine what your risk tolerance number is on a scale of 1 to 100. And we use that to massage that number up or down, depending on what that looks like for you. But that's the key point. And I tell people, look, if you're 90 years old, you still need something, maybe 10% in the market, because that's going to help us continue to grow our money no matter what.
And I know many people have questions about this, Philip, and so it kind of makes me think and wonder, why is it important for our money to keep growing in retirement? Because we don't want it to stop, right? We want our money to last as long as we live. But why is it important for our money to keep growing?
Well, I think, Danielle, if folks think back over the last 3 years, they know why, right? Because inflation, that ugly word, has really become part of our vocabulary, unfortunately, because everything costs so much more now than it did 3 years ago. And so a way to keep up with inflation is to grow our portfolios, to grow our investments to help us through that process of keeping up with inflation. And that's one reason that we look at the stock market, because the stock market historically has helped folks keep up with inflation. And so I know it goes up and down and there's volatility involved, but that's where we have that diversification between risk and safety. And so if we get those allocations done right, then we can handle some of the ups and downs and the volatility that we see in the marketplace. But all this comes to planning. I mean, that's the bottom line, Danielle, is we have to have a plan. And that plan needs to be written so that you know what it is and you can go back to it and look at it and say, okay, yes, I'm on track. I'm okay. And that's why I developed the core retirement design, to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of. That's important. You've worked hard to get to where you are, and now you need to be able to enjoy that time in retirement. Give us a call at 863-877-1188 to go through our core retirement analysis. Again, that's 863-877-1188. It starts with a simple phone call. You and I discussing where we are, what you need to do, and how you can prepare for that retirement. Again, give us a call at 863-877-1188.
Now, you don't want to make any financial decisions without fully understanding the full impact on all the other pieces of your retirement plan. So do not hesitate to call Philip and his team at 863-877-1188 to learn more about the benefits of having a comprehensive retirement strategy. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Now, again, we were talking about what it looks like planning for that 5-star vacation, because when you plan a vacation, you know how to research flights and hotels and look for all the savings, but how can you do the same thing for your retirement plan? We're going to continue the conversation on what it looks like to create a 5-star retirement plan right after this.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan or to see if you're paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 863-877-1188. That's VISIT to 863-877-1188.
Are you swimming in outdated financial documents? Do you have a shoebox full of random paperwork you no longer need? Time to round up all your old bank statements, tax forms, and the never-ending pile of receipts. Bring them to Statler Financial's annual Shred Day. Join us Saturday, October 25th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. across the street from First Baptist Church, located on the corner of the East Center Avenue and Mango Street. Plus, we'll have our friends there from the Heartland Food Bank, and they will be available to collect any food donations you may have. Please note, only paper products will be accepted, that and cardboard, not able to accept plastics or metals. For more information, call us here at Statler Financial Services, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Statler Financial Services Annual Shred Day, Saturday, October 25th. See you there.
Surprise parties can be fun.
Surprise!
Financial surprises, not so much, especially when you're retired, like finding out you owe more in taxes than you thought you would, or having to go back to work to make ends meet. Maybe you'll be okay, but why not double check just to be sure? Call Philip Statler at Statler Financial Services and schedule a no-cost retirement double check at 863-877-1188. Philip and his team have seen their fair share of surprises over the years and know how to help you avoid them. Call 863-877-1188 to schedule your no-cost retirement double check with Philip Statler at Statler Financial Services. Don't let a financial surprise derail your retirement dreams. Call 863-877-1188 now. That's 863-877-1188. You can also visit StatlerFinancial.com for more info. Advisory services are offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
I want to help you understand some things. Number one, timing of your RMD, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back into the show. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, along with Philip Statler. He is the president and founder of Statler Financial Services. We're continuing the conversation of what it looks like creating that 5-star retirement plan. Because, when you plan for a vacation, you know how to research the flights and hotels and look at your savings to make sure you have enough, because you want to make sure you get the most bang out of your buck. But the question is, it's also same thing for your retirement plan. Are you doing the exact same thing? It's important to make sure that you are taking the steps to help preserve your retirement savings. So, Philip, one of the areas where we can really help protect our savings, you mentioned this earlier in the list, is being tax efficient. So can you kind of explain to us the difference between tax planning and tax preparation?
Absolutely, Danielle. So it's really a simple distinction, right? Tax preparation is historic, right? Typically we get to, January, February of the year after, and now we have to do our tax return. So we're looking back to the previous year and we're taking that information and putting it on the tax forms and paying Uncle Sam what we owe him, and we're done. That's tax preparation. It's historic. There's nothing we can do to fix it after it has happened. Tax planning is looking ahead, making adjustments based on belief of what the tax system is going to look like down the road. And not just today. I mean, if we're just focusing on planning for today, it'd be one thing. But we are looking at saving tax dollars, not just today, but over your retirement lifetime. If we can save, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 of taxes today by doing something different, doesn't it make sense to do that? And that's part of our core retirement design. In the tax element, we are looking for ways that we can save taxes down the road, not just for our clients, but also for their children, right? Because that becomes important is how much can we save in dollars over your lifetime and your children's lifetime. And that's the planning process. And that's what we really have to look at when it comes to tax planning.
Philip, I love this conversation because you make it sound so simple for us. So how do you approach tax planning? I would say with the goal that your clients can spend more of their retirement dollars the way that they want to.
So what we look at is, we look at what does it look like now, right? We know that tax rates are today probably the lowest that you and I will ever see. And we know that in 2026, they automatically go up unless some miracle happens, right? Which it could, but is very slim. And so we know that we're going to see some income taxes going up in 2026. And if you follow the national debt and what that looks like and interest rates going up, you can just visualize that the only way to pay that debt is going to be increased taxes down the road. And so, unfortunately, that's the belief of most of us out here, is that taxes are going to have to go up just to continue to pay the bills. And so it may make sense to pay some tax now versus paying higher taxes later. So we look at things like Roth conversions. That's a big deal. Or even just taking some money now and putting it into a non-qualified account because taxes are lower now than what they're going to be in 2 to 3 years. But it's a process because there's this little fine line you have to walk between, taking too much and doing Roth conversion and not taking enough. So I believe we should max out our tax bracket. So if you're in a 12% tax bracket, you need to be looking at ways that you can do Roth conversions to maximize that 12% tax bracket. If you're in the 22% tax bracket, we need to maximize the 22% tax bracket because those tax brackets down the road are going to be a lot lower than what we're going to see. And so that's the process. And it's a big part of our core retirement design is analyzing where you are, what tax savings are going to look like for you, and what can we do? How can we plan that out efficiently and effectively to make sure that we're paying the least amount of taxes over our retirement lifetime? The number to call to get on the schedule is 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to walk through our core retirement analysis. It's you and me, 30 minutes, figuring out where we are and where we need to get to. It's that simple, Danielle. And it's only a phone call, right? 863-877-1188.
That's right, Philip. We like to remind our listeners that there's no cost or obligation to have a 30-minute phone call with you and your team. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Don't hesitate to call 863-877-1188. Philip, as we're continuing down the list of creating that 5-star retirement plan, you mentioned healthcare. And so that kind of leads me to this stat that I want to share with you that says, according to Fidelity, a 65-year-old couple retiring in 2022 can expect to pay an estimated of $315,000. That's after tax for healthcare in retirement. Now, that is not including long-term care. So, Philip, are retirees even aware that this steep estimate, and how can you help them prepare for that number?
Well, let me break this down in kind of my opinion and the way I look at it. And that's a 2022 number. Believe me, it won't be long before Fidelity comes out with their 2023 number and what that looks like. And it'll be more than $315,000, because I can remember a few years back, that number was $250,000. So obviously inflation is big when it comes to healthcare costs as well as everything else. And so you have to remember that big number is for a couple. So that's 2 people. And that's for your retirement lifetime. If you retire at 65, they're expecting you to live 25 to 30 years in retirement. And so if you break that down annually, it's a big number. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as hard to get your hands around as that huge number they throw out there. It is important to understand that this is why we need an income plan that allows for and gives us some inflation step-ups to help combat things like this, that inflation not only does for healthcare, but other items that we have to pay for. And so I think that it's just a process that we need to understand that healthcare is going to cost more and more, and that we've got to plan that and build that into our income planning process.
Philip, what are some of the options for addressing, I would say, potential long-term care costs? Because that number I gave you earlier, it didn't include long-term care. And so what are the options for addressing the long-term care costs?
So I look at long-term care in a couple different perspectives, right? I look at first, because we didn't really have these 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, they were there, but they weren't mainstream, and that's assisted living. And so assisted living is one step in long-term care. But what I have seen, and this is true, I'm going to say in our local market, not necessarily in the Northeast or on the coast of Florida, because their prices are a lot higher than ours are. But a lot of folks in our immediate area actually can pay long-term care as far as assisted living out of their existing cash flow. Yes, is it expensive? It is expensive. But typically, if you have to go into assisted living, you're cutting out other expenses as well. And then there's nursing home. Well, that's a whole different animal, right? And so how do you pay for that? Well, you could buy long-term care insurance, way back when, and that will help offset some of the cost. There are actually life insurance contracts, life insurance that have living benefits that will help cover assisted living and nursing home. And so that's an option. There are annuities out there that have long-term care benefits where they take your benefit, their account balance, and maybe double it or triple it. There are different things out there. But let me just say, they all have pros and cons. And you need to look at them specifically and weigh those things out to make sure that they are going to make sense for you. And then lastly, if you don't do anything, then you're going to be subject to Medicaid is stepping in to help you out. Now, there's ways to plan for that as well. And I'm not the expert, but I have a team of folks that can help us walk through that process as well. So there are different avenues to take care of long-term care expenses. We just need to have the right team in place to help walk through that process, Danielle.
Now, Philip, one of the last items that you had on creating the 5-star retirement plan is estate planning. So very quickly, how does estate planning fit into an overall 5-star retirement plan?
Well, it comes back to beneficiaries, having the beneficiary designations properly listed on your accounts. And, if your estate's big enough, maybe you should have a trust. If it's not big enough, then we need to make sure that we've got beneficiaries on all of our accounts. Our bank accounts, our non-qualified accounts. You can add beneficiaries to those accounts, and you need to make sure you've done that to help bypass probate. So that's the thing. The other thing I will say when it comes to estate planning documents is, a lot of people think of a will or a trust as estate planning documents, and they are. But there's a couple other ones that I think are as important, maybe even more important, and that's power of attorneys. Having that financial and healthcare power of attorney set up is huge. And I say it this way, Danielle, because the power of attorney is going to take care of you while you are alive. The will, the trust, you're gone. You've passed away. Now, that may be a harsh way of looking at it, but the power of attorney is going to take care of you while you're here alive. And that's why I think it's ultimately important that you get those things taken care of.
Now, to recap everything that you mentioned, Philip, the 5 ways to create the 5-star retirement plan include a reliable income plan, a wealth management strategy, a tax-efficient strategy, and a plan to address healthcare, and also an estate planning strategy. I know you and your team have done this for many years. And so how do you help people build a retirement plan that incorporates each part? And what's the best way that we can contact you and your team?
Absolutely, Danielle. So again, that's why I created the core retirement design to help people design all parts of their retirement process. And it starts with risk analysis. How much risk do you have in your portfolio versus how much risk should you have in your portfolio based on your current circumstances? How close you are to retirement? How old are you? These are all important pieces of that puzzle. And then we look at taxes. What do taxes look like for you today? What are they going to look like for you in 5 years or 10 years? We don't know exactly, but we can make some assumptions and plan out what that may look like for you. And then we need to make sure that we've got that income plan in place. And we need to build it to make sure that we've taken care of inflation. To start that process, give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
If you have questions about retirement, don't hesitate to call Philip and the team at Statler Financial Services. They are here to guide you through a successful retirement. Again, that number you mentioned is 863-877-1188. Again, 863-877-1188.
Do you have a retirement plan but would like a second opinion? Call Philip Statler today, 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815.
Surprise parties can be fun.
Surprise!
Financial surprises, not so much, especially when you're retired, like finding out you owe more in taxes than you thought you would, or having to go back to work to make ends meet. Maybe you'll be okay, but why not double check just to be sure? Call Philip Statler at Statler Financial Services and schedule a no-cost retirement double check at 863-877-1188. Philip and his team have seen their fair share of surprises over the years and know how to help you avoid them. Call 863-877-1188 to schedule your no-cost retirement double check with Philip Statler at Statler Financial Services. Don't let a financial surprise derail your retirement dreams. Call 863-877-1188 now. That's 863-877-1188. You can also visit StatlerFinancial.com for more info. Advisory services are offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. We've made it back. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Thanks for joining us here on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Philip Statler. He's the founder of Statler Financial Services. Hey, we want to get your questions in this part of the show, so we'll get some insights here from Philip on your retirement concerns. Plus, we're going to keep Philip on his toes today with a lightning round. This is where we're calling it a Think Fast Questions segment. It's a little fun here, so it's going to be fun. So I hope you're ready, Philip, to see what we got in store.
Let's just see what we've got here. I'm hoping that I can. The questions I don't have a problem with.
Yeah.
The fast thinking now. Sometimes I can be a little slow on my feet.
That's fine. We won't put you on a timer because we definitely want to provide some huge value for our listeners today. So let's just see what we got going here. But here's our first question. What could be the impact on my pension if I decide to retire early?
Well, a lot of times when folks retire early, they end up getting less money, right? Because it's based on pensions, usually based on years of service and your last so many years of your salary. And at the end of your working career is when you're usually hitting the high points of your salary mark. And so if you retire early, you get penalized because let's say you retire 5 years early. Well, there's each pension is a little bit different, but there'll be a reduction for each year that you retire early. And then you're missing out on the 5 highest salaries you're probably ever going to have. And so it's going to reduce your pension, I will say significantly, because everybody's going to be different. But there's definitely going to be a reduction if you take your pension early. I would encourage you to really look at the numbers and make sure that that really makes sense for you.
That's right. And if you have a question about this or your retirement plan, this is where you have an opportunity to sit down with Philip and his team. He has a core retirement design 30-minute call just with you to go over what you need, where are you at in your retirement journey. So this is your opportunity. There's no cost. There's no obligation. Simply give his team a call, 863-877-1188. Again, that's 863-877-1188. Okay. A next question that we have here is, when might be the right time to start planning for retirement?
Well, I don't know that you can ever start too early.
Yeah.
At least on the accumulation phase, right? As soon as you get a job, you need to start planning, okay, what do I need to put back to save for retirement? I think a more realistic answer, though, is to look at, hey, look, if you're getting 5 years before you retire, you need to start looking at where you are. You know, how much do I have saved? What are my current expenses? Do I have debts that I need to work on getting paid off? All these things come into play. Do I have a plan in place to make sure that I'm going to be okay, that I'm going to have enough, that I'm putting enough in my 401k, or I'm putting enough in my retirement or my Roth to make sure that I'm going to be able to create the income I'm going to need when I get ready to retire? That's the $1 million question, right? And so it's not too early. I would say 5 years out is probably a perfect time to start the process. But if you're not there yet, or you're past that, don't say, oh man, I've missed it. No, you still have time. You know, even if you're already retired, it's not too late to go back and put a plan in place, because a plan to follow is going to be much better than no plan at all. And again, Danielle, that's why I created the core retirement design, to help people design the retirement they always dreamed of. And it's simple. It's a 30-minute phone call. We'll find out if you're on the right path to the retirement you dreamed of. If not, we're going to give you some ideas. Hey, look, maybe you need to do this. Maybe you can do that. And here's what we can do if you'd like. Give us a call, 863-877-1188, to start your core retirement analysis.
Well, Philip, you got in all the questions that we had for you today, but hey, we're going to take a few minutes for a lightning round. This is going to actually help us get to know you better just a little bit, just to see just who you are behind the scenes. Okay, but the thing is, I know I didn't time you earlier, but you're going to only have 2 minutes to go through all the questions that I have for you.
Oh my gosh, so just 2 minutes?
Just 2 minutes. So I want you to answer as many as you can. I'm just going to spitball them, and then you just answer, and then I'm just going to go to the next question. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Let me get my timer ready. Here we're gonna go start in 3, 2, 1. Okay, what's on your bucket list right now?
All right. So England countryside.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
I don't know what my pet. I don't really have a pet peeve, I don't think.
Okay, we're moving on. Favorite comfort food?
Chips and dip.
Favorite athlete of all time?
Probably Hank Aaron, followed by Lou Brock.
Love it. Okay, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book is Think and Grow Rich. I had it in my head. I couldn't pull it out of there.
Love it. Okay, movie you will watch over and over again?
I don't really have one.
Okay, 1 minute left. Go to an icebreaker story. What's an icebreaker story that you have?
You know, probably an icebreaker story I have gets a little long sometimes, but I go back to when my son was in college, and he struggled, and we pulled him out of college, and he went to the GCBI, Great Commission Bible Institute, and how that really transformed his life and got him on the right path. and how God really worked through that to make a huge difference in his life and in our lives.
Love it. 30 seconds. Describe your morning routine.
So I'm up at about 4:30 every morning. I spend about the first 45 minutes to an hour doing my devotions and reading my Bible. Then I make sure I've had at least 3 cups of coffee. Then I usually do about a 30-minute workout routine at the house. And then I'm, in the shower, getting ready for work and out the door.
All right. We got through majority of them. I will say majority of them we got through. But actually, I really want to ask this last question. We have a time for it. What's your earliest financial lesson?
So when I was probably early middle school, maybe even in 5th grade, my brother and I, we mowed yards. And so we would go out together and mow yards, clean up yards, and that kind of stuff. And so my earliest financial lessons were really learning to take that money and to be responsible, right? If I wanted new clothes, I had to save up and use my share of that money to go buy new clothes. And so that was kind of my first lesson was really running that little business, having my own money, making, my parents taught me well, hey, look, the first that you get, let's give, a tithe back to the church. And then from there, what are you saving up for? And I would put that money out to the side and say, okay, look, it's time for school clothes. I don't want what my mom and dad are going to buy me. So I'll use my money to go buy what I want. That was kind of the rule of the day back then. And so that was kind of my earliest, and I started working, like I said, 5th, 6th grade on my own doing that. And then from there, when I was 15, I had my first job actually in a retail store. And so, I've always worked.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think it's funny how, the lessons that you've learned at such a young age continue to be with you as you grow older, And so I think that's a beautiful thing. Philip, that's all the time we have for today. Hey, thank you for passing the test. You got through all the questions. We even got through that lightning round. But hey, if you have any questions about your retirement, you want to sit down with Philip and his team, don't hesitate to call. There's no cost. There's no obligation. All you have to do is simply give him and his team a call at 863-877-1188. Again, that's 863-877-1188. Thanks for listening to this week's Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Second Half Financial Partners, LLC does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation. This radio show is a paid placement.
Are you swimming in outdated financial documents? Do you have a shoebox full of random paperwork you no longer need? Time to round up all your old bank statements, tax forms, and the never-ending pile of receipts. Bring them to Statler Financial's annual Shred Day. Join us Saturday, October 25th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. across the street from First Baptist Church, located on the corner of the East Center Avenue and Mango Street. Plus, we'll have our friends there from the Heartland Food Bank, and they will be available to collect any food donations you may have. Please note, only paper products will be accepted, that and cardboard, not able to accept plastics or metals. For more information, call us here at Statler Financial Services, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Statler Financial Services Annual Shred Day, Saturday, October 25th. See you there.